Hello, you. It's me. And I have been getting some of the most interesting comments. And I really appreciate it. I like when people ask questions. And I like when people say, oh, but what about this? Or what about that? And that means the world to me because it means you're listening, you're paying attention, and you're thinking about it. And that is why I appreciate you guys so much. Because then that makes me start thinking about things too. Now, today, I watched a video by Ash2 Trippy who put out an idea of what she thinks happened. And here's the thing that I didn't know, and I thought I read all the information, but she says that there were two stab wounds in the front of Dee Dee by her heart and lungs. And her theory is that it's quite possible Gypsy did that first and then rolled her over and she got impatient waiting for Nick and just wanted to make sure it was done properly. And that absolutely sounds like Gypsy. But it still doesn't explain the blood in the sink. It doesn't explain the blood splatters. There's still a lot of open ends that haven't been answered. I still think that it is possible that David Blanchard and or Dan, what is his name? Something like that. Dan, we'll just call him Dan. I believe that they had planned to maybe participate to some degree. A theory that was thrown out there that I thought was a brilliant idea is that maybe they were supposed to catch Nick in the act. And some say that he was meant to be unalived. I think Toddy One-Skip might have said that. Maybe it wasn't that he was meant to be unalived, but he was meant to take the blame. Not as necessarily an intruder, because obviously there were years of messages going back and forth between her and Nick. So maybe she was trying to set it up like he came over in a fit of anger and unalived her mother, and she was hiding in the bathroom scared out of her mind. And maybe Dan Gladwell, I think that's it. Maybe he was supposed to come in and save her and call the police, or I don't know, something like that. Or maybe Dan chickened out and he said, hey, David, you do it. David Blanchard. So he was planning on doing it, but he didn't do it either. Or maybe he didn't get there quick enough. I mean, there were truck tracks. I don't know if David Blanchard drives a truck, but there were tracks by the house and footprints. And I can't help but wonder, maybe they had planned something and it didn't happen. So Gypsy had to change things up. There's so many different ideas. Again, love speculating. But I didn't know about two wounds in the front of Dee Dee. And so that makes me question everything that I think I know. And makes me think I need to go and reread the information that I have and get the FOIAs I read secondhand. Maybe I just need to get the FOIAs myself. I don't know how expensive they are. Apparently they're pretty expensive. But I'm thinking maybe I need to look things over and reread things and look at everything and gather the truth from the false, from the speculation. I don't think anybody is reporting anything false like Gypsy says. I don't think. I think what they're doing is speculating, and maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but they're just giving a guess because there's so many holes in this story. Gypsy has changed her story about what happened that night at least 5 different times that I have seen. Between the interviews when she was in prison, to the interviews she made out of prison, to the book. One of the books, I don't know about the other one. I never looked at that one. But there's been a lot of inconsistent stories. The only person who ever sounds consistent, I found, has been Nick. And his story could be falsified to some degree because he wanted to save Gypsy. So he might have said just about anything. And so we need to take that into consideration. Now, I would say generally speaking what Nick said was true. But there are some times in the interrogation where he looks a little confused or flustered. And he just kind of answers. And those are the moments where I think he was trying to cover up for Gypsy. But I feel like there's a lot more going on. I feel like somebody might have been there and chickened out, or might have come there after the fact to help Gypsy fix things up so that she could set up Nick. She obviously was not happy to be with Nick. So there's a lot to think about and to look at. So, I just want to clarify, I talk about what I know to be true or what I think is true. But that doesn't mean I'm right. Because the only thing I think I'm definitely right on is that Gypsy lies a lot. Gypsy changes her stories a lot. And we need to pay attention to the signs that she gives. Her mother, God rest her soul, definitely died, I think, before Nick got there. I have said that maybe she was possibly dying before Nick got there. But I'm thinking that maybe she was already gone before Nick got there on the 9th. Gypsy is very specific about her dates and time. Well, not times, but dates. Very specific about her dates. And she was very specific about saying June 9th. And that was also the day she got the first sonogram from Aurora. Or for Aurora. Whatever. That was Aurora, the baby. And yeah, she's very specific about dates. So why would she make that mistake? Even if it was the early mornings of June 10th, why would she make that error? Because she is very specific about her dates. So that needs to be looked at. And I think that's an important, it's an important gotcha for Gypsy, that she was lying. The problem is finding out what really happened that night. So I'm going to review all the evidence. If you guys have anything, I did have one commenter send me some really good info. I'm going to look over that again. But if you guys have an idea about the FOIAs, how to get them, send me some information, maybe some other documents, anything, or just tell me about stuff. I would really appreciate that, because there are so many inconsistencies in the stories being told. And even more, as time goes on, it gets worse and worse, especially with Gypsy. I would think, just with the information that we know, that she planned out the murder and she tried to kill her mom at least twice before Nick was even involved. I would think that that would be enough evidence alone. And I know about the BB pew pew. I think the other one, I'm not clear on what the first attempt was. I think someone said poisoning. I just know people say there was 2. I know of the one with the pew pew. I'm not completely sure about what the first one was, but I would think that would be enough evidence to prove that she is not of sound mind and body, and that she needs to be put away from society because she's obviously very dangerous. Particularly dangerous to people who are susceptible to coercion, like Nick, and seemingly like Ryan, and seemingly like Ken. They all believe her. You know, now maybe Ryan's belief has faded. I think Ken has too, but he's sticking around for whatever reason. A lot of people say money. That could well be. Who knows? I try not to focus too much on the boys because I don't really care. I think it's sick and twisted what Gypsy has done with them. I don't know what she said or did to make them think she could tell the truth. But, you know, she's got her manager guy who's there too. He's with her. I mean, obviously, he's there for the money. But she twists so many people and got them involved. And they believe her. And it's so obvious. Like I said, I believed her until she got out of prison and I started seeing the inconsistencies and I went, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't seem right. And then I could see her for who she was. And that's just vicariously through the internet. I'm not in front of her. If I were in front of her, I would have noticed it a lot sooner. Because she's very clearly has narcissistic tendencies at the very least. So I don't understand why people, including her family, have fallen for anything that she has said. Although I personally think that her family is sick of her because she is a horrible human being. She doesn't treat people well. She treats people nice until she gets what she wants from them, and then she dumps them. She doesn't care. And you can see the obvious jealousy between her and Mia. I wonder about the other sister and what she thinks about all this. She's probably really glad that she never connected with any of them. I think her name is Nicolette, something like that. She's probably happy to be far and away from all this mess. I don't blame her one bit. But there's so many pawns being played, and it's not just Gypsy. I want to know what happened that night because I am convinced Gypsy did everything before Nick got there and then had him do a little something so that he would take the blame even though he wasn't the one who did anything. I am convinced of that. That is my opinion. I can't say whether that's fact or not, but seeing Gypsy the past year and a half certainly tells me that that is true. Although I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm saying this is factually what I believe. And I am open to changing my mind if something comes out, but I just don't think I will in this case because Gypsy is so horrible. And you see the patterns of how she treats people, and that's how she treated Nick as well. So to me, it's just a done deal on that. I think she had a lot more to do with it. I think a lot of people feel that way too. But I want to go back and look at all the evidence, everything that I can. I'll look at the interrogations again if I need to. I just want to point out, that there's so many theories, and I love that. But I want to get the facts straight because I feel like maybe I don't have all the facts that I need in order to come to any kind of speculation conclusion. um, yeah, I didn't know about the 2 wounds in the front of the body. I should have known that. That makes things very different. I do know that from what I read in the autopsy, that there were 4 stab wounds that were of a different color and could possibly have happened after Dee Dee was deceased, which is what I think were the 4 that, or about 4 that Nick did. That's why my theory has always been that Dee Dee was either passed on or close to passing on before he was even there. So I'm going to see if there's any other information I can find on it, because I want to make sure that I get things right in my head before I do any more speculation. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that I'm going based on facts and evidence, which I've always felt that I have. But if there's things like 2 wounds in the front that I didn't even know about, then I need to make sure I have more of the facts. So if there's anything that you can suggest I go to, please let me know in the comments. Anything you have to say about it, please let me know in the comments. I appreciate you guys so much, because not only have you given me great information, but you do ask questions. You do want to know, which makes me want to know more too. I want to make sure I get things right. So when I talk to you guys about it, you know I'm coming from a genuine place. I'm not just making stuff up. Gypsy is so... It frustrated me so much when she said, "Do you really believe what you say?" Yeah, I do. Because I go by evidence, and I go by speculation on the evidence, sure. But it starts with facts. And then we go off on tangents and talk about possibilities. That's what we do. But yeah, do I believe what I say? Absolutely. Do I believe that Gypsy's pregnancy was at the very least questionable? Yes. There was evidence showing that she was wearing a fake baby bump most of the time, or at least when she was filming. You could see it. It was very fake. Could it have been just something to cover her up to protect her belly? Yes, that is absolutely a possibility, which is something that I mentioned. But I think that maybe she did those things on purpose. She wanted people to question her so that they would look like they're not reliable narrators. They would look like they're, oh, look at, they made this up. Obviously I was pregnant. Look at my baby. Obviously it's a real baby, not a doll, blah, blah, blah. But I think she set things up intentionally to, I think Ken had held a doll at least once in one picture where you can see the letter number on the head, the skull of the baby. I think that was a doll. I think they did that on purpose. I think maybe she was changing up the size of her pregnancy on purpose. I think that could have been intentional, like I said, to make people who question it look like they're foolish and that they're lying. But we weren't lying. We know what we saw. We know what was going on. And there's still the theory that the baby, she didn't give birth to the baby, that someone else did and gave the baby to them. That's always a theory as well. Because we know Lifetime lies and sets stuff up. And Lifetime, she said that nobody was there when she had the baby. But then there were all of these cameras when she was in the hospital. You know, there's a lot of inconsistencies, so we have to look through that and try to get to the actual information, which can be tough. But, you know, let's do that. Again, any suggestions you might have, I'm going to look high and low wherever I can to get as much information as I can and then bring it back to you. As far as I'm aware, the information I've given so far is factual and true as far as the wounds on Dee Dee's body. Didn't know about the two in the front. Like I said, that's news to me. That's why I want to go back and look. I want to make sure that you have the right information. And I say very clearly as well that I don't know if everything I'm saying is factual or not. You don't know until it's proven so. And I like to state that, but that doesn't mean circumstantially that it's not a fact. We don't know if it's fact or fiction, and that's why I say so. But it seems true, it rings true, but I will always correct myself if I'm wrong. And I know you guys will too, which I love. You don't understand how much I appreciate that. I appreciate that engagement because you're listening, you're paying attention, and you're people who think as well as feel. And I love people like that because you want to get to know what happened as much as I do. You want to have justice for Dee Dee, justice for Nick, and justice for Stephanie, Nick's mother. You want to have that too, just as much as I do. And that's why it means so much. You pay attention, you say what you think, and I appreciate that. And I want to keep doing that. I want to keep that conversation going with whatever information that I have. I will let you know that I don't always know whether it's factual or not. But I'll tell you that until I know it's fact. I'll let you know that. So yeah, we're going to work on it. Again, if you have any information on how to get, like the FOIAs and stuff, let me know. Or if you have any information you can send to me, you can send it to my email. Yeah, let's see what we can come up with. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for being around. Thank you so much for all the comments. And that's all I got to say.